Okay, we may begin.
Tuesday, March 11th, 8:15 a.m. Start of the meeting. In attendance is Jadon, Terry Driscoll, Steve Penda, Jim Coyne, and Lisa. Approval of minutes from February 11th. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second those.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Secondly, the consent agenda. On the consent agenda today, we have the banking summary and the occupancy list. Is there any discussion on that? If not, we have a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Excellent. Third on the agenda, review of Saturday service prices. That was in the superintendent's report, so would we remove that from the report?
It's a separate line item. Terry,
I think we can just talk about
address it.
Okay.
It's listed as a separate line item.
All right. So Lisa, Saturday service report?
Saturday services. So when we get a full burial in on a Saturday, we charge $1,000 overtime. And we have to have 4 guys in for a full burial. And it costs us approximately like $900 and almost $1,000 to have the guys in. So we're breaking even on that, and I'm wondering if there should be a little more play in that price.
Does the $1,000 go to our
Budget?
account or
No.
budget, or where does the $1,000 go that's paid into the cemetery for?
It goes to the general fund in town. It gets turned over to Milton.
So it doesn't go to our payroll, our budget payroll.
And then every budget year, the town of Milton gives us a certain amount
Of
of
overtime.
overtime, budget for overtime.
So they're just replenishing their coffers with the monies
Yes.
that we're bringing in.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
So it sounds to me like it's money in, money out that's at an even pace, so it feels like it makes sense to just
Well,
leave it there.
we get money in for overtime for the guys to do services.
Mhm.
Now, last year we took in like $20,000
Right.
for overtime for services for collected. But then, the guys also have to do overtime here on Saturdays, getting ready for a month for Memorial Day
Mm-hmm.
and for leaf cleanup, which is huge. So leaf cleanup takes an enormous amount of
Mhm.
overtime, because when they're here during the day, on a regular day, they're busy doing burials, openings, setting stones, doing lots of little regular maintenance items. And leaf cleanup takes, like the whole crew
Yeah.
working together. So
Are they 8-hour days when they do leaf cleanup?
yeah. Yeah, so they'll come in on a Saturday. We try not to do Sunday overtime, it's double time. Except right before Memorial Day, we offer Sunday overtime. So, and then, I have the seasonal kids come in, and they're mostly dedicated to weed whacking,
Mm-hmm.
so.
And they get overtime?
No, they do not, the seasonal kids do not get overtime. They work on straight
Monday through Friday.
minimum wage, Monday through Friday. Even if they work on a Saturday, they don't get overtime. They don't.
'Cause they don't get the
ne-
hours.
Yeah, they never go over 40 hours. So,
Is there a way to have the overtime stay within our accounts?
like, go to a revolving overtime account?
I don't know, go to something that stays within your purview versus going to the town general fund.
Not as far as I know.
I mean, we should look into that.
Because that would benefit your budget, because it's the staff that are here doing the work here. Even though we have a budget of overtime if they took that budget for overtime away, but gave us the overtime that we're getting paid, although we don't know.
You
What
can't,
that's gonna be.
you can't use the budgeted overtime because you don't know how many funerals are going to be on a
I'm
Saturday.
just realizing
Yep.
as I'm
Or
talking.
services, I should
Correct.
say, so.
Correct, you might not have enough
To cover.
services coming in that are paying the overtime to cover your overtime that you've given the guys for the leak cleanup and the general maintenance. Okay. So that's.
So basically, if funeral services outweigh what we have budgeted for overtime, then we wouldn't have any overtime available for cleanup,
For
spring
leaf-
cleanup,
for-
Memorial Day,
For property
incidentals,
maintenance.
etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it feels that, to me, that if we have this budget that we're working with and we're able to stay within that budget now, we're in a good place.
We're okay.
Yeah, because it's not negatively
We're okay.
affecting our
But-
It's not
cash
taking
flow
away
here.
from our budgeted
Not at all.
overtime.
But
Yeah.
should we be collecting a little bit more?
Well, we could inquire.
But
as
does
to
it
what-
matter? Because if it's not, if we're not paying, so if your numbers are spot on and we're paying $1,000, a family who chooses to have a burial for a full casket's paying $1,000 on a Saturday, and you're paying the staff close to $1,000 to come in on a Saturday, it's a wash.
Okay.
Should we charge a little bit more? Probably. I don't know.
1,200 or?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, with cost of fuel going up and the guys are sitting in a truck.
But again, it's going to the general fund.
Right,
It's not
and
coming
it's,
back to
yeah,
you.
and it's budgeted for. So we would
Okay.
be charging an upcharge to families that would just pass through and just go and help the town, right?
Mhm.
So there's
Mhm.
no benefit to the families.
Okay,
So if we want to be a for-profit, making money for the town, we could charge more and pass it on, right? But it just feels to me that we're providing a service, and as long as we're getting paid for that service, that the numbers seem okay.
Yeah.
okay.
And if it's a cremation, a family's only paying $500 or $600 on overtime.
They're paying 500, but it only requires one man to
Correct.
come in and cover that service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, we'll be talking about a little later, I think you mentioned the override. What if our budget, we were told that our overtime budget's cut in half, then we have a problem, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's if they
Right.
don't pass an override.
Right.
But either way, even if they cut our, let's say they did
Yeah.
cut our overtime budget in half, we don't get the funds, it goes to the general
Well,
fund.
right, we would have to figure that out. That goes back to what you were saying before. Can we go and talk about setting up a revolving account or something of that nature? So we gotta be really careful with that, with the override and watching our budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because the budgeted overtime is still higher than what you're taking in on overtime
Mhm.
At the moment.
at the moment.
I think the first step would be to inquire from the town if we can create a revolving fund for the overtime for Saturday burials. That way, if it's established before an override question that's proposed, we may have the means of just taking the money in immediately, putting it into a revolving account. If they do cut our overtime budget, we've actually raised the bar on our end, so it's just going to keep revolving around on the overtime money. If we had to give up the overtime budget line item, we'd actually have a means of bringing in some source of income with the burials.
Yeah.
I can't see them cutting the entire overtime budget line.
No, no,
because
there's
you
no
need
way.
to have
There's
Can
it.
no
we
way.
introduce an article before town meeting?
Right.
We'd have to inquire, I just have to find out from how you would have to create a revolving fund account.
Right.
Because I don't think we'd have a special town meeting before the May town meeting,
No.
Stephen,
No,
correct?
no.
No, just,
You have to, when we created a revolving account for the house, we had to write an article
Yeah.
and introduce an article for town meeting.
Right. Did it have to go in front of the warrant committee first or no?
I'll have to check.
yeah, I would just make an inquiry into that.
Make it an inquiry, but I think we've got to be careful too, right? Because we don't want to get that conversation going, and
I
then
think we're
that's
gonna-
one more thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
more thing for the Lisa to have to manage, and so
Right.
I
Okay.
think it doesn't feel like it's broken right now. I guess the only other thing is if we could look at last year, maybe what we spent in overtime versus what was budgeted, so we have an idea of just where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at the last 2 years.
Last
just
2
to
years,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just in case
Well, we do, we're going to talk about it, but we have to look at, what would it look like? Where could we find
I'll
money?
investigate that.
And
Okay.
I was kind of surprised how many services you did have January 1 and December 31 last year. 22 Saturdays.
Right.
That's a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half.
That's half of the Saturdays that the
Yeah.
guys have off.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some of them, so it was a total of 22 Saturdays, 13 we needed a full crew for the burials. On 10, we only needed cremation coverage.
And I would.
So 10 being 5,000, right?
Hmm.
And then the other remaining to being $1,000 each.
Mhm.
So if you, what do we have with that?
We took in 20 grand.
$20,000,
Right.
which would basically come from our original existing overtime
Yes.
budget.
Yeah,
So if they were to eliminate our how much are they looking for a reduction in our
50,
from what's our balance?
64.
65,
So that leaves us with
14.
14,000.
Yeah.
So we're in a negative right there. If you base it on last year's alone.
Right.
Any services that overstay 12 p.m. are charged an extra $250 per hour. You really can't predict if they're going to be here a long time or not, so you usually have to end up sending them a bill. You send the family a bill, and it can be difficult to collect.
So
Uh,
what we do at the ski club for trips that we can't come up with a firm price of what it's going to be, we get a deposit and we get a credit card.
Yeah.
So then when the final number comes up, we send them a bill. If they don't pay, we put it on their credit card.
So we don't take credit cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often are you end up chasing for a late weekday or
Not
a
often.
late Saturday?
Not often.
Right.
Yeah.
Not often.
Right.
Not often.
Right.
We use it to discourage people mostly,
Right.
because if you let them, they'll go out to lunch
Right.
and have the luncheon, and then they'll come back in and do the memorial, or so it's a way to reel people in, actually,
And that extra 250
because we
goes
can't
back
just
to
stay
the.
here all day.
The extra 250 goes back to the town
Yes,
When collected.
when collected.
yeah, yeah, but it is interesting. 22 Saturdays that they have.
Yeah.
We have
So when
so half of the year we have to be here on a Saturday.
but my guess is that hasn't changed in 100 years, right? So when they came to work here,
They knew.
they knew, right?
Right.
Part of the job, right?
That's what I said
Yeah,
to them.
good.
You work at the cemetery, we provide a service to families. It includes burials on Saturdays.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
and we can't make those burials happen at 9
Right.
a.m.
Right.
I'm actually surprised that you, on that list, how many funeral homes are involved versus there's only a couple of listings of family members. So, I mean, that usually means more work for you or whoever's here.
Corralling
Because the funeral
people
home-
and
Funeral home
yeah,
usually does it, but
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised it's
not
mostly
that many
funeral homes.
family cremation
Right.
services.
Right,
Right.
okay.
Dog guy.
Yeah.
Any more discussion?
That's it.
No.
All right.
There is no correspondence.
So,
Well, no, let's finish each item
Yeah.
first.
so the,
So you'll,
So,
go ahead.
no,
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, so.
I'll
we're o-
follow up with the overtime.
Yes. Yeah.
Totals.
Right, but for now, we're okay with the service prices because they're lower than, they're higher than what we're paying, so,
Yes.
good.
I would just inquire just to see when's the last time there was a rate increase
Yeah.
on Saturday funerals, that's all. Just if we can look back at it. Like when was the last time it went from, 1,000? How much did it go, when did it last go up to $1,000?
was
It
when
went
I
from
first
$800 to $800 to $1,000. I just don't know the year.
Thank you.
It was when I first came. I think it was in 2020.
Okay.
2020.
Okay, so next we had a superintendent's report, and did we want to take out Nick Milano's request and put that in as correspondence or new business, or we leave it on the report? How do we handle that?
I think it would be new business, because it's
Yeah.
a current email, right,
Right.
from the town administrator.
and a
So,
new
yeah,
discussion.
I would just remove
Remove
that,
that, okay, great.
and put it under new business for discussion.
That's exactly what I had done, thank you. So before we get to that, we'll stick with the superintendent's report. Do you want to go through the report, Lisa?
Hunt Tree Service continues to come in and trim trees. They're working up back, looking really good up in Section E, up near Murray Ave. We're moving over to Section D today, actually. The payment for them comes from that grant that we received from the Copeland Foundation for tree pruning and maintenance. We also have to pay a Maltby tree for coming in and treating. So Hunt doesn't do any pesticides and stuff. And so we're trying to proactively save our beech trees or treat them with what might be a good treatment for beech leaf disease, because we're losing beech trees all over town, and they're big and beautiful, and we don't want to lose them. And we have 8 beech trees on the property, so I have a contract with Maltby, and they're getting $10,000, just under $10,000 of that tree maintenance money. Yeah, Hunt continues to move through and trim trees, and also they're working out of those particular sections and taking down dangerous trees with the crane, and they'll be doing some stump grinding and all that. We're coming close to the end of that money.
So can you talk about how much that comes from the foundation, the money for the hunts?
$50,000 the Copeland Foundation gave us for tree maintenance, not just for hunt work, for anything we do with the trees.
Got it. Yeah.
That includes Maltby.
Okay. Does that include any purchases of trees, or is it just maintenance?
Yes, it does include replacing trees.
And do we do that?
Yeah. So last year I did 1 or 2, just a couple trees. We've slowed down on that. It's really hard to keep trees watered. We've lost a couple of new trees. I don't know if it was because of watering or because they were in the wrong spot. But, a couple of the coral bark maples, which are more of an ornamental, tree, we didn't do well. But it's an issue, is getting, somebody has to ride on a water truck all day long and water these trees. So we replaced a whole bunch of trees up by Murray Ave last year or the year before, those birch trees, so we want to make sure they take, I've slowed down on tree replacement because there's not a whole lot of viable places to put trees in a cemetery, and
Right.
we have to dedicate one guy, all day on a water truck to run around and water newly grassed graves, plus any trees that we have planted. So it's difficult.
Got it. Thank you.
On that question, so there's $50,000 so over this course of the year we spent the $50,000 roughly on that work since we got the grant?
Since last May or June, since we got it.
Do we spend any other funds out of our budget on tree work over and above these
It usually
funds?
comes out of the Copeland money.
All
that we get,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
because we don't have any extra money to spend on tree work.
Right, okay.
We, our general fund, our building and grounds fund is tight.
Right,
That's why we ask Copeland for money.
yeah, okay.
And it's really necessary work.
Right. So should we put together another ask for Copeland?
So originally, last year, that ask was for 4 years, $50,000 a year for 4 years, and they gave us the 50, and I think they're going to readdress it at their next annual meeting and maybe give us another 50.
Should we
I
send
hope.
them a little reminder and tell them about all the great things we did?
Right,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Look at
Right.
the work they've done.
right. Yeah,
great. Mention the beech trees and the fungus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way.
yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
I will put together a letter for them. because that's work that we would not be able to do without them.
Right.
And the place would be
That was-
looking pretty
That
bad
was my
pretty
question.
fast.
Look at my front yard.
Right.
It would look like
Yeah,
my
we
front
look at it
yard.
every time we drive by it.
Can you please do something
I'm
about
not been
that?
here on weekends.
It's out of the use.
We're getting
Brook Road.
there. We're getting
I'm
there.
afraid of trees falling out on the Senate Street.
I had a burial about a week and a half ago, right here in the front, the old section, and the family commented about how many of the trees had been cut back and the stumps, right down to that.
They could see the new
They could
cuts.
see all the new
Yeah.
cuts. And
Yeah.
I explained to them about it was an old section, it was the Community Preservation Act funding, and you had a company come in and they thought that was the greatest thing going. But it's only because I knew about it.
Yeah,
They could have left here with not
Yeah.
a great impression about what was going on. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how it fills in. And I just think that there's, when you stand on the grounds and you're listening to the wind rattling through the trees and you're hearing the creaking and you're seeing the branches flying, I'm glad that Hunt is addressing some of those.
on a windy day, really, it's risky
Yeah.
being in here with the amount of old trees that we
Yeah, I
have.
agree.
So,
I was out there yesterday and I was just glad there were no trees around if we were in an open area yesterday because it was really windy at 10 o'clock.
so moving to the next item is Mark Chapman continues to be out with a shoulder injury that he slipped on ice. He was cleaning off a vehicle, he slipped, and
Here on property?
yep.
Okay.
And so he's out. He's having an MRI at the end of the month, and we'll go back to his orthopedic guy and get his opinion. But his orthopedic guy said he could come back at half capacity and do light duty, but it's not in the guy's contracts to do that.
Okay.
They can't come in and do light duty. So Matt is covering for him, and we're paying Matt a little extra out of grade for pay.
So
And-
on that, so Matt's doing
Matt
work
is the
at his-
man
Yep,
below
got it.
Mark. On
Yep. But so he's doing work for Mark out of grade, but who's covering for Matt then? Do we have enough personnel to cover all the work that needs to get done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What is Mark's title? What's Matt's title?
Mark's the
Is it-
senior. Mark's the senior foreman.
Mark's the senior foreman. What's
Yeah.
Matt?
Matt is working foreman.
And do we have another working foreman or do we only have one working foreman?
I believe Joe. Yeah.
So there's two working foremen?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, what Matt has to do is mark out graves.
Yep.
That's one of the very important things that Mark does, that Matt has to pick up now, is to mark out the graves.
Okay.
So,
Is it something to look into the next time a contract goes through that someone can come back at half capacity or is
You won't
that?
see it in the unions. They won't allow it.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And you don't even get involved in the union negotiations, that's through town hall, right?
that's town hall and their union, yeah, and the workman's union.
Yeah, they would be the town administrator that would deal with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anthony San Marco sent a proof of the book. I hope you took a look at it. And corrections have been made.
Looks great.
And we should be getting it sometime at the end of May.
Great.
So
Perfect.
that's good. We've been waiting a long time for that. I'm taking a little vacation time right after Memorial Day and going away for about a week or so. Still firming that up.
Good for you.
That's great.
Town Administrator Nick Milano is looking for.
We're gonna what's that?
Yeah,
Okay,
We're gonna
we're
take-
gonna
that's
come
gonna
back
be
to
moved.
that?
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
be removed
And-
and under new business.
And we already addressed the overtime thing,
Right.
and that's it.
Okay, perfect. Motion while you get there.
Right. Motion to approve superintendent's report.
Second.
All in
Approved.
favor?
Approved.
Yeah, great. So, new business, no correspondence, no old business, correct? Just
No-
new business?
No correspondence.
Just new business. Nick Milano is asking us to look at our budget.
If there is not an override, they are looking to find $1 million townwide, so they're gonna reduce each department. They would have to reduce each department, and they're looking at our overtime and seasonal help, which was not good news,
Right.
because we do Saturday funerals, and those are a very important service. And, you know, there were 22 Saturdays that the guys had to work last year. And the property maintenance is also done
Mhm.
chiefly on overtime. So that'll be a tough nut.
So I've never seen our budget. Is that something that I can access to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, do you want some input from us, like where to help you, like look at where we can find the 50,000, or are we supposed to come back to him with a reduced budget? Like when I was with the park department, we had to do that, right? We had to bring in that reduced budget, provided there was no override.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So is he asking you to submit a new budget?
Yeah, I think that's what it sounds like.
All right,
At
so,
Yeah, I
so
told-
does it
I
have
told
to
him
be-
50,000 less than level.
To be ready to submit a new budget, right?
I would just.
Well, that's the question I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
real quick,
Yeah.
I think you should forward the email from Milano to all the trustees.
It was a phone conversation.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe have a phone call back with Mr. Milano and
Yeah.
ask him to put it in writing what he is expecting
Yeah,
from
what
you.
exactly is he looking for? Should we
As
wait
the
to after the
superintendent.
override, or do we wait?
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
he have to have something ahead of time, or can we be
Yeah.
working on it?
Just a simple request. That
Yeah.
way we can all look at it and say, now we'll look
Yeah.
at the budget.
Got it.
All right.
So the budget is an Excel spreadsheet that has basically payroll as one tab and then general expenses is the other tab. And so payroll's pretty set because of all the grades and
And
union
contracts.
contracts and things like that. So the places where there's some discretion would be probably overtime and then seasonal. So
Yeah,
that's
the
salary.
operating
And
budget
then
for the-
then the expenses, there's probably not a lot of wiggle room in there
Yeah.
too, unless there's a generic 10,000 for tree maintenance. I don't know if there is one.
That's what I was asking. Right.
Nope. We
Okay,
nope.
so.
What's the current seasonal budget?
27.
Okay.
Yeah, so that could be cut down easy. I mean, not easy, but that could be cut down.
Right.
So that would be like, that's the easy way to find
You're
50,000.
going to have a lot of flack from residents about
Mhm.
the way the cemetery looks.
Right.
If I get rid of seasonal,
Sure.
if I have to get rid of seasonal help.
Okay.
So I
well,
would-
not
I
doing-
would
Get
that's
it back
not-
a year later.
I wouldn't look at getting rid of seasonal help.
Or
It might be a
reducing it,
reduction, and they do extremely valuable work because of the aesthetic part of
Yeah.
they do all the weed whacking between the graves, which these guys just can't keep up with. They're mowing the lawn in there. Our regular guys mowing the lawn and doing the regular burials.
You have to keep in mind we're a 100-acre cemetery,
Yeah.
so. you
We
know,
get
we're
it.
not-
We get it.
But there's line items that you could look at and
Right.
share.
Something I might see
and-
that. Yeah.
Right.
pick up on
Right.
and so let's, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that getting it in writing from Nick as to what
Yeah.
he wants and when he wants it,
Right.
Okay.
is something that can best inform us, and then
Right.
I think he had his meeting last night with the select board.
so he'll know better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So correspondence to Nick Milano, and then if you can just forward us a copy of the last year's budget
Will
to
do.
each trustee, and then we can all look at it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Any further discussion? All right. Anything else?
Anything?
New business. Just
Mr.
want to
Dolan?
talk. Just want to talk about the gas tank situation, and Matt came to me this morning and just wants us to address. It's more concerned about the safety issue of the splashing, the splashback, and the transport, and it's not a great situation. So I know that we had talked about replacement of those large tanks. I know that we had talked about a tank, those plastic tanks with the metal casing around, encased
Yes.
with the metal.
The job
I know that
site.
we talked about the tanks on the back of the truck, but if you could look into, with others' input, if you could look into what a cost would be for those
I'll look into the job site tanks.
cubes,
Yeah.
and then, how it works, where it comes
Got it.
from. I think
That
that
was
if you could look into, what do we use more of? Do we use more diesel, or do we use more gas? Is it a big drop
That's why
on
we
the
put it on
diesel,
hold.
big drop on the gas? Because one of the things he said to me is we're getting towards the lawnmower season.
Right.
Which I believe would be all
Two
gas
different-
engines.
Yeah.
So, I think if we could address that for the guys and go from there.
Will do.
Please.
Yeah, if you need any help looking at pricing tanks and that type of thing, we buy a lot for our companies. So
Thank you.
I know some people in that industry I could talk to.
Different tanks, or fuel.
Fuel tanks, yeah. Like above ground, in ground. Yeah, but above ground, can be cost effective. You just have to build a vault around it to contain it.
Well, that's what we have,
Yeah.
is an above ground.
Yeah,
Do we still have the tanks that we don't use?
Yes.
yeah,
So there's probably a cost to get rid of those
Yes.
then also.
Yeah.
yeah.
Have they been vented?
They're cleaned out.
They're cleaned out?
They're cleaned
Are
up.
they scrapped? Are they scrapped?
Are they plastic or metal?
They're encased in cement. It's a big removal.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a big job removal. I think it would
Did they
cost at
mention
least
in there, could they say what the
$10,000.
currently this?
Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen
I don't know
them.
if
To
Yeah.
even get rid of them. They're right inside the maintenance yard, right inside that fence.
Are they still in the ground? Is that
Oh, above the ground.
They're
yeah.
above
Total
ground.
price
ground,
removal
encased
and
in concrete.
installation.
Yes.
Okay.
So back in February of '23, we got a price from Frank Lamparelli for the installation of one 500-gallon gasoline tank and the installation of one 500-gallon diesel tank and removal. Let me see. They will both fit on the existing concrete pads. See the tax schedule. Total price for removal and installation of the two tanks is $87,184.
Wow.
And that was back in,
23.
yeah.
Yeah, that money, that's, not in the budget, not in the
It's
budget.
not happening.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, if there's no new business, get a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
8:47 a.m.